What do you fancy today, Mrs. W? A cabbage or a nice Romanesco?
Oh, it has to be the Romanesco. It's looking so lovely, isn't it?
It is indeed. They do look really, really good. So let's have you. There's another one just over here. I think we'll take that as well.
I think we need to, because I think they are starting to open up a bit, and we don't want that. We want them when they're at their best. Let's have a look at that one. Oh, lovely. Beauty.
I've just cut down the leaves, and actually the leaves are actually really clean. One of the benefits of us covering our brassicas so that the pigeons can't get to them, and you like to use those in stir fries, don't you, Mrs.
We do,
W?
yeah, we will be using those up, definitely.
Have all the lovely smell of a brassica leaf. Romanesco is a brassica, and it's most closely related to cauliflower. A lot of people think that is broccoli, but it's not. It may have the same sort of colour, although it's more of a lime green than a dark green, like Calabrese broccoli, but actually its most closest cousin is the cauliflower. But unlike the cauliflower, it has pointed florets.
Sometimes they look quite spiral, don't they?
Yes.
The pattern of the florets are quite spiral.
And if I just move away a couple of leaves here, this is why we were actually wanting to harvest these two today, because you can see that the stalks are getting long and they want to rise and try to flower. There's always an optimum time to harvest Romanesco in the same way that there is cauliflower. And as soon as you see these start to begin to separate, that's it. You must harvest there and then. The other interesting thing is about this is that you can take a very small head, and we have one here. You can see in the same way this is now starting to split, and the leaves are wide open, so it's ready for harvest. That's as big as it's going to get, that central head. But actually, like the broccoli, it will actually produce little side shoots if you harvest it early and when it's small. Romanesco is spring sown, so usually from April onwards until about June, July time, and then you'll get your harvest October, November, and perhaps into December. So why am I holding this Romanesco here? It's mid-February. Well, I inadvertently picked up the wrong seedling tray. Either that or Mrs. W labelled it wrong.
I think it might have been me, you never know, do you?
I popped these into the ground expecting them to be cauliflower.
We were quite surprised when we realised.
We were, weren't we? We were thinking.
But it's a nice surprise, because I like Romanesco.
So actually Romanesco doesn't actually really, you're not really harvesting at this time of the year, but clearly you can. So I've written that one down in the diary, actually. Plant some out in early October and you can have some in February. Why not? Why not? When I do plant them out, I plant them out at 2 feet spacings, 2 feet either way. Just as with cauliflower or any other brassica that you plant, the wider the spacing, the bigger the head gets. Romanesco is actually a really great vegetable to have and to use. It can be eaten raw and it can be eaten cooked. A lot of people actually use it in salads to give that bit of crunch. It can be sautéed, it can be boiled, and it can be roasted. So adding some of this to your stir fry will give it a real good crunch. Probably my favourite way of eating this is to roast it with some garlic and some zest of lemon. So what have you got to do for my lunch today, Mrs. W?
Well, today we're going to have one of your favourites. It's going to be the roasted Romanesco with onion and chorizo. You are going to need a large head of Romanesco, approximately 400 grams. If you don't have Romanesco, because I know it's not one of those things you can always get in the shop, you can do this with regular cauliflower, so that's fine. 100 grams of finely sliced shallots or onions, a couple of cloves of garlic finely chopped, 40 grams of finely chopped chorizo, 10 grams of Parmesan cheese, some celery salt, pepper and a bit of olive oil and some parsley. And if you want to make this a vegetarian option, you can omit the chorizo and just add a teaspoon of paprika onto the onions as we're cooking them, but I'll remind you when to put them in if that's your choice. First of all, you need to preheat your oven to 190 degrees centigrade, that's 170 fan, 375 Fahrenheit, gas mark 5. So I've taken the florets off, and with the stems I'm just going to cut those into small sort of centimetre long pieces, and they should cook at the same rate as the larger florets. So we're not wasting any pieces. You're aiming for similar size florets. To the florets we are going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Just drizzle that over. Half a teaspoon of celery salt. And a few grinds of pepper. So we're just mixing that all around now so that we're trying to get an even covering of the oil and seasoning. And then we're going to empty this onto your baking sheet, trying to spread it quite evenly around. This will need to cook for approximately 20 minutes, but we're going to put it in for the initial 10 minutes before we take it out and give it a turn around. It's had its initial 10 minutes and it's smelling lovely. I'm now just going to take the tray out. See, it's starting to get little coloration on it. So I'm just going to flip that over a little bit, give it a turn so that it gets cooked on all sides.
Such an amazing colour, isn't it?
Such a vivid, light, vibrant green, isn't it? Like lime green. It's so pretty. So I'm now going to pop that back in for another 5 to 10 minutes, just keeping an eye now. We're aiming for that to brown but not burn, and it can suddenly go quite quickly, so we just keep an eye on it. While the Romanesco is continuing to cook in the oven, I am now heating 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a pan, and I'm going to add in the 40 grams of chorizo. And I just want that to gently, for a minute, sit in that oil and release those lovely flavours from the chorizo. You can see the oil now starting to colour from the oils being released. Now that we've got those beautiful flavours released from the chorizo, I'm going to add in the shallots. Stir them around. Just looking to cook these down for a couple of 3 minutes. So as you can see, the onion is softening really nicely now, cooking quite gently. So I'm just going to add the garlic and gently continue to cook that garlic out for another 2 to 3 minutes. If you wanted to make this a vegetarian option, do not put in the chorizo. Simply go straight to add the onions and then On top of the onions, sprinkle a teaspoon of paprika and cook paprika with the onions that way, and that will be your vegetarian option. There we have the Romanesco, and you can see it's now colouring quite nicely. We don't want it to burn, it's just nicely cooked. Now we're just simply going to add this into the onion and chorizo mix. Stir it all round to incorporate the onions into the Romanesco, into a serving dish. You can have it as a main meal by adding a bit of cooked pasta and stirring that through it. That's a nice way of doing it. Or just simply as a side dish, vegetable dish. It's so versatile. Sprinkle that with a bit of parmesan. As much as you like, just to taste. And a bit of fresh parsley on the top. Romanesco, which we never thought was going to be in our garden at this time. It's got our shallots in it, it's got our garlic in it, and it's got our parsley in it. So there's very little that didn't come out of our garden. Is it nice? Are you enjoying it? No.
I'm not speaking.
Leave some for me, please.
Absolutely gorgeous, Mrs. W.
Oh, good, thank you.
And what I did want to say is that you also do a variant on this. Instead of the shallots, you actually roast off the leeks, don't you?
I cook the leeks.
Along with the Romanesco. And that's absolutely gorgeous too, it really is. So there are many variants to this and things that you can add.
It doesn't have to be Romanesco. You could use broccoli,
yeah,
cauliflower, definitely cauliflower.
One thing I do want to mention is that when we were out in the garden earlier, I mentioned that Mrs. W actually uses these leaves for a stir fry, and it's Sunday today, but actually midweek we're going to be having a stir fry, and these leaves will keep fine in this bag in the fridge for the next...
Probably 5 or 6 days.
Yeah, probably 5 or 6 days.
Yeah.
But they won't be in there that long. Around about Wednesday we're going to have a lovely stir fry, and they will be added to that. Also, I just wanted to say a big thank you for all of your wonderful comments in our last video, the DIY hot composter. It is truly a great way to do your composting and to get it a little bit quicker. And if you do like we do and get it into the bins, it can then mature for the rest of the season until you actually need it during the autumn time. We try to operate as much as possible as zero waste on anything that we cook, grow. This is one such example. They will be used, they will not go to waste. But also, this is what's left of the Romanesco. And as we have a really good hot bin, it doesn't take very long. Because this is so fresh, this is the stalk, look how easy it goes through it. So easy. And chopping it up into slightly smaller pieces will mean that it can go into that hot composter, or indeed cold composting if you're going to do cold composting and not do hot composting in the same way that we do. The surface area will be larger once you chop this up, and therefore it can compost and break down much quicker. We always keep a bowl handy. You can see Mrs. W peeled some potatoes yesterday evening, and she's all good girl. She's already chopped this one up as well.
See, I'm not just a pretty face.
And we
Hold
just
your comments, everybody.
add that into there, and the next time that you will see all this, a bit later on in March, when we put out our next video about the hot composting recipe that we use, you'll see this and how it really does break down and makes the most amazing compost that will actually feed our soil and add nutrients that the next generation of vegetables will be able to use, and we get more lovely Romanesco just like this. Do have a great gardening week, and we shall see you on the next one.